And welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to another weekend edition here of the PondCast episode 87, your weekly dose of all things StarCraft. I'm, of course, just VIP with you. I'm joined by Kuro, handling the production, and of course by all the lovely people in the chat as well. Welcome, one and all, to our weekly wrap-up show. And again, covering all things StarCraft and StarCraft adjacent news. There's a lot to get into, actually. A lot to get into in regards to interviews, in regards to massive news coming from the land of China and NetEase, and also some new patches to StarCraft Evolution. Let's jump in. Let's jump on in here, as up first we do have the interview with Serral by the SCHistorian. So a big shout out to SCHistorian, as he has been providing so many interviews throughout the course of the past couple of years. Again, the SCHistorian has been going to a lot of offline events and has been taking those opportunities to actually have a sit down with a bunch of players, casters, and community members to be able to provide interviews on a pretty regular basis. We just had some older EWC interviews, but recently, of course, we had HeroMarine Cup a couple of months ago at the start of the year, and we had the first interview with Musti last week, and now we have an interview with Serral, also from HeroMarine Cup. So again, this is more recent, of course, from a couple of months ago, 1 or 2 months ago at this point, from HeroMarine Cup. And Serral, he was able to elaborate a little bit on his time, on his more recent years and his time leading up to EWC, Esports World Cup, and also his time in the military. I was most interested in what he had to say regarding his military service. I think that was maybe one of the more better lines of questioning, and I think I would have liked to have delved into that a little bit further. He was asked, about his time in the military and how they kind of structured his life, and how they gave him some time to practice and to improve and sometimes actually play the game. He spoke about how, of course, during that time, it did, of course, negatively impact his rate of play, just because he was playing less time. He was having less time practicing and improving, of course, so that did impact him. But he was able to basically request time to practice and improve, and apparently that was a normal thing, because he was in the more like athletes program, right? All the other athletes, all the other people that had special special privileges were all together, and they would request time to practice for their respective sport. Same for Serral as well, so he was able to request time. He even said that he probably could have, because maybe he wasn't fully aware, but he probably could have requested for even more time to practice as well. In preparation for his matches, in preparation for major tournaments, but he did elaborate a little bit on that. It would have been really cool to have heard a little bit more about what the military service, or what the the training program did entail, and how he did progress through it, and again, how it affected him as well, and how it changed him, if at all, any skills he learns. Like, it would have been nice to have heard a little bit more about that period of his life, because it was a pretty big and recent part as well. We did touch on it a little bit here, going a little bit more into like upcoming talent, his rivalry with Clem, of course, his performance at EWC, his motivations as well, and what drives him to compete and what drives him to improve, and also some questions regarding the future of StarCraft as well. So it was an interesting interview for sure. Again, for me personally, it was hearing a little bit more about that time in the military, which is something that we were a little bit less aware of. Outside of that, he spoke a little bit about his brother, for example, competing in StarCraft, and how that got him into competing, or into StarCraft as well. So he was able to touch a little bit on that. He spoke a little bit about the current meta and ZVP and how difficult it is, which we have heard from Serral in the past. Again, he's had a couple of interviews with like Rotterdam, for example, like the Basilisk interviews, or even some time with like some other members of the community. So again, these are things that we have heard already. Yeah, it was interesting to hear. He spoke about how he, his favorite tournaments to compete in were always BlizzCon from back in the day. So exciting to see that Blizzard Cup, the Classic Cup, is right around the corner. And that's potentially, a way for Serral to experience BlizzCon once again and experience that big stage. So yeah, it was definitely an interesting kind of interview here from the SCHistorian, and big shout out to SCHistorian for bringing this all together, for being able to provide that. I would have loved to have heard a little bit about the Finnish scene, specifically because if you know anything about StarCraft, or about some of the events that we cover here on the podcast, you will know that there are relatively regular local events in Finland, and Serral is often brought on to cast and he's actually, and I'm sure because of Serral's connections, they're able to have Bassus sponsor the event as well. So it's quite common to see Bassus sponsoring some Finnish lands, and Serral, of course, providing coverage as well for the up and coming Finnish talents. And it would have been interesting to have heard his thoughts on that, his thoughts on maybe his casting on the Finnish scene, and what he thinks about the Finnish community in general as well, as it has been growing under the guise of Serral, under his in a way leadership. So yeah, it would have been nice to have heard a little bit more about some of the other aspects that or some of the other avenues that he's been approaching related to StarCraft that isn't necessarily competing but sponsoring and casting as well. Would have been interesting to have heard a little bit from that, but regardless, it was cool to hear from Serral nonetheless. Was cool to hear. Once again, big shout to the SCHistorian, and this is still only the second interview that we've had from Home Story Cup. I'm sure we have many more. I'm sure we have many more interviews from Home Story Cup as well. So shout out to the SCHistorian for taking the time at these major events where you want to be watching games, you want to be watching StarCraft, you want to be enjoying yourself, but taking the time to actually set some time aside and actually bring some people together to be able to record these interviews, and to be able to bring all this to our attention. So big shout outs. That leads us into our next piece of news. We were speaking on the Masterclass earlier. We've had a couple of Masterclasses from Ladder Legends. Essentially, Ladder Legends, they are a coaching service. And for the past couple of months, we have been seeing some like Masterclass sessions where they bring on a big name pro player to be able to host a Masterclass, to be able to teach, to be able to have a bit of a Q&A, and to be able to go over some of their own play, I should say, some of their own play, and of course have that kind of teaching session as well when it comes to their respective race. We've already had a couple of big ones, of course, with Rainer. We spoke previously how we had a big masterclass with him. I want to say, was it Serral, that's it. So Rainer and Serral, they both had some masterclasses. Now it's time for the first big Terran one with HeroMarine, with Big Gabe. So it looks like they brought Gabe on. It is going to be on the 10th of April. That is going to be the big Terran masterclass. I don't think we've had a Protoss masterclass yet, but I'm sure we'll get one eventually, where they can bring on someone like Showtime, or I mean, if Basilisk are willing, they might bring out Trigger. I don't know if Trigger is going to be the best teacher just because of his demeanor and how he interacts with people, but yeah, maybe they'd be willing to bring him on. But do expect more foreigner players involved in this, less so Koreans. I don't know if they're looking to get into like a translator and have someone like that on. They might be able to drag Solar on. Maybe. It's hard to say. It's hard to say. But regardless, again, if you want to learn some Terran, if you want to learn from Big Gabe himself, there is going to be the Ladder Legends Masterclass on the 10th of April. There you go. Oh. All right. I think I heard that. I think Euthermal, who was joking about Goblin hosting a masterclass. Maybe. I think I was joking as well that Euthermal should host the 2v2 masterclass. That'd be a lot of fun. I feel. But we'll see. We'll see what they do bring together. The other massive piece of news this week is the upcoming potential updates to the StarCraft II Chinese server client. Okay, so there's a bit of a backstory coming into this. So what we're about to say here is not rumors, not speculation. It is actually happening. But very quickly, for those who don't know, NetEase, they are the publishing company that does actually provide the Blizzard services in China. They provide Blizzard services in China for their Blizzard games specifically, for all the Blizzard titles. And that was the case for a long time. It was, I want to say in 2021, where negotiations and the partnership between NetEase and Blizzard broke down. There's, I want to say there's reports of higher ups at Blizzard kind of dropping the ball and maybe asking for more for less, essentially, and there being this kind of like tension between the parties. And again, negotiations kind of broke down. In the end, the partnership was broken, or it wasn't re-signed. It wasn't re-signed, and in the end, Blizzard kind of lost their games in the Chinese region. That's why, if you recall, for quite some time, we did have Chinese players being forced to play on the Korean server, for example, and same can be said for like Diablo, for World of Warcraft, for the other Blizzard titles as well. And I don't think they ever replaced them. Yeah, they never signed a deal with, say, like another Chinese publisher. Like they just kind of abandoned that part of the market. There's a lot to be said about Blizzard and how they've handled themselves over the past couple of years. But now under the new leadership and the new acquisition of Microsoft, we've been seeing a lot of good moves out of Blizzard when it comes to trying to rebuild that bond and trying to renegotiate and trying to repair their reputation in a way, and also work on their games and actually make use of their IP. We've been harping on this for the past couple of months at this point, regarding some of their use of the StarCraft IP with the miniatures game, regarding the use of their IP, selling their license, of course, to Nexon for a StarCraft FPS, and also their renegotiation with NetEase. If you recall, the Chinese server came back online last year in November. I want to say like October, November of last year. And it seems like, or something that we knew, of course, is that in this renegotiation, NetEase have more control over the game. Previously, they would be under a little bit more strict guidelines and supervision of Blizzard, and they would just provide the service itself, provide the games. But it looks like, or something that we knew, was that they actually brought on a development team. They brought up a development team for each of these titles as well, for Diablo, for World of Warcraft, for StarCraft. And in doing so, they are actually working on these games. This is one of the reasons why the StarCraft game was kind of fixed in regards to the arcade, right? That was fixed first on the Chinese server, which is why, actually, for those who don't know, a couple of months ago, a lot of arcade makers and a lot of arcade players actually made Chinese accounts to actually play arcade games on the Chinese server because it was available there. They could freely update their arcade games there, not on the main, global version of the game. Until eventually that, came to pass and that was fixed and that went live not even that long ago, like a couple of weeks ago on the global version. It took a while, but did come across to the global version of the game as well. And I bring this up just because, we knew that there was... this is also why the hero portrait went live, right? It was a Thunderfire event, which was sponsored by NetEase, and Hero won the event, and they were able to push through that portrait quite quickly. I remember a lot of people were like, we don't even have an EWC Clem portrait. Like, what the hell? Like, a lot of people were like suddenly they were so quick to add the hero portrait. We're still missing a couple from a couple of years ago. Even the Serral EWC portrait we don't have yet. But again, that's because NetEase have more control. They also sponsored the event, so they can just push it through almost immediately. Like, they can just do it. And of course, now NetEase have, and we knew that they had a development team working on StarCraft. Apparently, they've also been, I think they released a new unique season in World of Warcraft, and similarly to the arcade kind of event that we spoke about, where a bunch of global international players were making Chinese accounts to play in the StarCraft II Chinese arcade. We had the same thing with World of Warcraft, with a bunch of streamers and international players making Chinese accounts to play the new season of World of Warcraft that was exclusive to the Chinese server. Now, NetEase, they have been releasing some polling, and asking the Chinese community about what they want next in regards to StarCraft. And they've actually posed a couple of different ideas. One of them, of course, is new skins for units, new skins for each race, I should say, which we haven't received new skins in a long time. But I think they're working on potentially even like translating or bringing over some of the co-op skins and making that available, like in the live 1v1 ladder version of the game, and potentially even making their own skins as well. But one of the big things that they're suggesting is a unit rotation. Now, this apparently was actually suggested and pushed by Xiaose, who's a big part of SC Boy, who's like the biggest community leaders, I should say, in StarCraft in China. So it sounds like it was maybe the idea was brought up by Xiaose, and that's been propagated here, and that's being posed to the rest of the community. But the idea of a unit rotation is imagine in my mind it's every season, but it might be even more regular than that. But imagine where every season they do pick say 5-6 different units, and they rotate them out with different variants or different units entirely. So imagine, a 3-month season or 2-month season, where instead of having the Cyclone, you have the Herc. The old unit that never quite made it into the live version of the game. Imagine if instead of having the Mothership, they bring back the Mothership Core, or they make new unique units, right? Imagine if they replace the Cyclone with a Diamondback, if they replace Vipers with Defilers. I think one of the easy things to kind of to speak on is imagine them switching some of the SC2 units with Brood War variations, like Dragoons or Goliaths or things of that nature. But it sounds like they're looking to maybe even make some more unique units if at all possible, or maybe port some units from say from say like co-op, for example, like the Leviathan, which would be crazy. Like, but basically new units or alternate units. They're in different phases of the game, like co-op, like the campaign, and introducing them into the 1v1. Now this does kind of pose some pros and some cons. The big pro is, of course, it does kind of shake up the meta every couple of months, like pretty heavily, and everything has to be changed potentially depending on what units get moved and what units get changed. It does kind of breathe a massive breath of fresh air into the game itself on a regular seasonal basis. It's a way to make adjustments to the game outside of just purely balance patching, right? Like outside of purely just adjusting numbers, adjusting, the cost of some things or the radius of some spells or some more technical, like just pure like number changes. Instead of that, just introducing or shifting entirely new units. Now the advantage of this is that balance doesn't really matter as much. What I mean by that, if we find out, if the meta settles and there are certain units that, maybe are a little bit too good, or maybe they lean towards a certain build, a certain direction, and maybe like a counter isn't necessarily readily available, well, remember, this is temporary, right? It's a seasonal rotation shift. So they're only going to be around for like a couple of weeks or a couple of months, and then bam, they get rotated out, right? They get rotated out, and then we get some new units as well. So if there are some like potential balance issues, it's only going to be temporary. It could potentially negatively impact the competitive scene if something is too egregious, but that's only if it's too egregious, right? If it isn't, and if it's well within kind of like the realms of balance more or less, then everything's fine, right? But there are potentially some situations where maybe something is too strong or something is too good that could negatively outcome like a tournament or something before it does get rotated out. But it's definitely a unique idea. It is going to complicate certain things like balance patches. Like there are definitely murmurings of another patch on the horizon. It is going to make like say the TLMC wild as well, because we have to try to take into consideration how other units function potentially, and how that could impact certain scenarios and certain maps and certain base layouts as well. So that's kind of hard to take into consideration. But it would be a pretty big change. It'd be pretty huge. And there are definitely some conversations happening at the moment whether it's a good thing or a good change or a bad change, right? There are some purists that are like, we just want the game to more or less be stable, and we just adjust things every now and then on an incremental basis, and for the most part leave it alone, and maybe just try to adjust things with map pool rotations, very similar to Brood War, right? Where Brood War hasn't really gotten a balance patch in a very, very long time. But at the same time, Brood War and StarCraft II, they're different games, right? The reality is that they're different games. It does feel like StarCraft 2 is more prone to becoming a little bit more stale, a little bit faster. I think a reason for that is because maps don't impact the balance of the game as much. Or I think another reason is maybe that, or I say maybe, the reality is, Brood War, when it comes to their map rotations and their seasonal map pools, they're a lot faster. They're a lot faster, and they're a lot more willing to have unbalanced maps. They're a lot more willing to have like island maps or 3-player spawn maps, 4-player spawn maps. They're more willing to have a map that straight up favors one race over the others, and they're willing to force players to play in that kind of environment and then switch things up. I would say they're a little bit less. They are less restrictive. They're more experimental. They're a lot more willing to be to take these bold moves and bold claims when it comes to the maps in Brood War. In StarCraft 2, there are a lot more limitations. There are a lot more restrictions for good reasons. Say, for example, because of the Sentry, because of Liberators. There are certain units that do kind of make use of terrain in a certain way that kind of force map makers to take that into consideration and be more careful when it comes to how they want to construct a map. Otherwise, things can be too imbalanced. So again, it's a different game, and there are certain units that do impact the map itself, and the map has to take into consideration regarding. That is true, but at the same time, like the TLMC is a lot more restrictive in general, and when it comes to the TLMC voting as well, I want to say that people are a little bit less willing to be more exploratory and more and more diverse in how they approach things. I will say that, like, I'm saying this in generalities. I will say in the past like year, they've been a lot more willing to open things up and mix up the map pool, and again, the reintroduction of 3-player spawn maps, like that was great. That was like what, 2 seasons ago. we've had now for 2 seasons, is 3-player small maps. So they've been slowly being reintroduced, which is great, but it is slow moving, right? It is slow moving. It's like, what, maybe twice a year we have a TLMC, so it does take a while for the maps and for that kind of idea to kind of permeate through, and for the maps to adjust and for things to become a lot more experimental at times. It takes a while for that to happen. It's a very slow moving process in StarCraft 2. So because of that, like, something like this feels a lot more drastic. It feels a little more drastic, a little more chaotic, and maybe that's a good thing, right? Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we want to introduce some chaos here to shake up the meta on a much more regular basis in a much more extreme way. There's definitely like arguments on both sides as to how the game should be approached, and what would be good and healthy for the game and what wouldn't be, right? Personally, I don't really know where I am on this. I think it's hard to say, just because we have like another TLMC on the horizon, right? We have another TLMC on the horizon, so like there are changes being made and the meta is going to be shifting, but at the same time, like, is it enough to keep the game fresh? Again, it's something that I'm open to, for sure. It's also hard to say because we don't really know the details, right, as to like how often are we going to have each season. Are they going to make latter seasons shorter because of this, and have them have the rotations faster, or do we keep the length of latter seasons the same? I think there are some people that are asking for like a separate ladder for it. I think that wouldn't make sense. I think the player base for StarCraft is too small to split the player base even further in half between like the base game and like this unit rotation version of the game. I feel like it's got to be, it's all got to just shift over. Like, if you want it to work, if you want it to actually be implemented. So it would have to just be affecting the base ladder, not like having a separate ladder entirely. But yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. Definitely going to be interesting to see how they approach this. And at the end of the day, again, there's still kind of like voting is still taking place amongst the Chinese community, whether this is something they even want or not. So we'll see. We'll see what comes of this. It's definitely an interesting idea. I should also emphasize that on the one hand, yes, it is true that this is going to be for the Chinese server, for the Chinese client. But at the same time, we had the arcade change come over to the global version of the game. I would like to believe that if this change were to go through, it would also go through to the global version of the game as well. But like that's more speculation. Like, I think there's a high chance of that happening. Technically, there is a world where this change goes through. They have these unit rotations, but it's only applicable to the Chinese version and not to the global version. It's possible that just happens, which would be a shame. It would be a shame if it was an experience only had in the Chinese server. If that were the case, then we have to do what the arcade boys did as well, and just get some Chinese accounts and start playing on the Chinese server to experience that, which is less than ideal for people living like in Europe, for example. I guess it's fine for us here in Australia and for Koreans as well, because we'll be able to with relatively low ping. But from players from the Europe and players from the Americas and from Latin America as well, it's something that's maybe not too viable because of the high ping of playing on the Chinese server. So that's more of speculation, whether or not it even goes live in the global version of the game. I would think that it would, but it's hard to say. In my mind, I would imagine that it would take time for it to be implemented, just like with the arcade version or with the arcade update, where it has to be localized, and I'm sure it has to be touched up by Blizzard to make sure that it functions, like in other languages and things of that nature. So I would assume that there'd be like a delay in that, but for the most part, like, I would imagine that it would go live in the global version as well. But again, that is just speculation. But yeah, it's definitely interesting. Definitely an interesting thing that's happening in StarCraft, and it's, at least for me, exciting. Like, I'm looking forward to see what comes of this and what changes are made and what is implemented by NetEase and into the Chinese version of the game. We'll see. We shall see. Yo, meanwhile, big shout out to Luis GGG in the chat. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for the raid. Hope you had a great stream. Hope you had a great ladder session. Hope you had a great time. Welcome to the PondCast. Welcome, Pappy. Welcome. Let's go. But with that, we then have our final piece of news, which is going to be a balance patch update here, or balance update for StarCraft Evolution. Bearing in mind this is for SC Evo specifically, which is of course a collaboration, or which is Brood War versus SC2. Brood War versus SC2. It is a mod. It is a mod in StarCraft, a relatively popular mod that does have its own competitive scene. It's a little bit smaller, but it is active nonetheless. Currently, we've been in the off season of SC Evo until recently. A big reason for that is the aforementioned arcade being broken in the global version of the game, and we were waiting for it to go live again before implementing any kind of big changes. And here we have them. So we have patch 1.18 for SC Evo. Just quickly catching up here. This much belated patch is the first of the year 2026. We are grateful to be able to publish content once again, and we are excited to bring you the latest round of balance updates. Oh boy. Okay, so this went live on the 21st of March. It's been a couple of days. Heading on over here, we have our new models. Let's go. We do have a shout out to the art team. Shout out to Old Junior for his work on some of the new models and also on some of the new assets as well. We do have the new model for the robotics facility. Let's go. So again, much more in line with what it did look like in the original Brood War. Again, for this mod, we do have a lot of custom buildings just to delineate one race from the other. Even the pylons look different from Brood War pylons to SC2 pylons. Even if they are technically the same building, they try to make the best they can, or the best job they can, to make sure they look distinctly different. Just to make sure that you understand that Brood War Protoss is not the same as SC2 Protoss, or Brood War Zerg not the same as SC2 Zerg, things of that nature. So there are custom models and custom art pieces for like assimilators, gas geysers, refineries, depots as well. And we just got a new model for the robotics facility, for the Templar archives, and also some new skins for the Hydra, the Dragoon, and for Marines as well. Let's go. Let us go. I say new skins.
Can I just say, it's been how many? 20 years? More than 20 years of StarCraft, and only now I realized that the robotics facility in Brood War is not a big radio. But it's actually like a platform with like an arm on it.
Yeah, it's a platform. Yeah.
See, as a child, I just thought this looks like a radio. I was like, well, that's a weird shape, but I guess Protoss.
God damn it.
Thank you,
yeah, like it looks like it's like a grill for a radiator, and it's like exhausting like something. Sure, I can see that. I can see that. Never mind. But yes, we do have the reimagining here of some of these models. Meanwhile, we can get into the balance changes. First up is Terran changes. Bearing in mind, for the most part, SC Evo, they only adjust and they only balance the Brood War version of these units and of the races. I say mostly because they did break that rule not too long ago, and then they reverted those changes. So, but that just showed that they're willing to make some SC2 changes as well. So like that is something that they're willing to bring to the table and willing to do for this mod, which is interesting. For the Terran changes, we have 3 changes. We have a change of the Vulture, the Dropship, and the Valkyrie. So for the Vulture, the decreased attack period. So the attack period has been decreased from 1.36 to 1.32. That, of course, tells me that the attack rate has increased for the Vulture. And we have also decreased the Spider-Man research from 57.1 to 50 instead, so 7.1 seconds sooner. Likewise, for the dropship, we have decreased the build cost from 150 to 125 and decreased the build time as well. To compensate, HP has been reduced. I would imagine this is also just to incentivize drop play. Drop play is a thing in Brood War, but obviously dropships are less mobile, less maneuverable, and harder to pull off compared to the SC2 medevac, just because there's no boosters, for example, specifically the booster ability. Likewise, there's no added benefit of healing either. So trying to make the dropship a little bit more accessible, I think, is always a good thing to incentivize their usage. The Vulture change is interesting. I know the Vulture has had a lot of ups and downs, a lot of changes, just because of the strength of mech as well for a period of time last year. I will say, sorry, I should have started this off actually going through these changes, is that when it comes to StarCraft Evolution, a lot of my knowledge is a little bit outdated, just because we casted a lot of a lot of StarCraft Evolution last year, but coming into this year, there was a big hiatus, so regarding the events. So again, we were a little bit out of the loop. Recently, the events did come back, only recently, but we have yet to really sink our teeth into them with StarCraft Evolution League number 18, 19, and 20. So we're a little bit out of the loop if the meta has been shifting. What I will say very quickly as well is that I assumed, because the last patch was back in October, it has been a long time. Like it's been what, like 6 months. It's been a long time since the last patch. So I was waiting for some big changes. I was expecting like some big sweeping changes for everything, because they've been cooking up for months at this point. But at the same time, it was also the off season, so there've been less games played. There's been less data to go off of, and I'm a little bit surprised and shocked and disappointed with how small the patches are for Terran. It's only these 3 changes, and it's nothing major here. Very minimal changes so far, especially with this being the first patch of 2026. It caught me by surprise. The other change was to the Valkyrie, decreased attack period from 2.68 to 2.54. When it comes to some of the rationale, these are minor adjustments to address what appear to be the most noticeable gaps in the Terran arsenal, and particularly the opportunity cost of building a starport, control tower dropship compared to other starport tech, or delaying cutting the starport entirely seems too high. Again, this just goes into the viability of dropships. That's mainly what it's in reference to. I mean, I say mainly, likewise also mainly in reference to. The Vulture change is interesting to me. It does, of course, strengthen up Vulture play and mech play. Again, I'm not too familiar if that has been a bit of an issue when it comes to StarCraft Evolution in recent months, but I would have to kind of like take them at their word when it comes to the nature of some of these changes and the rationale behind it. So some minute Terran changes that leads us into the Zerg changes up next. Up first is going to be the Hydra. Interesting. Increased muscular augments, basically both upgrades. Increased muscular augments, research cost from 100 to 125 125. Same with group spines as well, from 100 100 to 125 125. The Hydra is a pretty core unit when it comes to Brood War Zerg, just because there are no roaches. There's no roaches. There's no Ravagers either. So there's no Banelings. So Ling Hydra is kind of like the go-to in all matchups. Muta play is also a viable option as well, but Ling Hydra is kind of like the bread and butter of Brood War Zerg. And again, based on what we're seeing here, it looks like there have been some strong Hydra builds or Hydra play or Hydra timings available, and that is looking to be addressed. Reading this up, one of the biggest problems in StarCraft II Protoss versus Brood War Zerg, so the PvZ matchup, is Muscular Augment's Hydra timing attacks. These arrive early, preclude the possibility of Robotics Facility and Stargate openers, forcing Twilight Council play, and rarely puts the Zerg in an outright disadvantageous position, even when they fail to finish the game. I'm curious if this has been done by Solar and Shin as of late. Again, like, we have been casting a little bit less SC Evo recently. We're trying to get back into it. Yeah, I'm curious if that's what we've been seeing from some of the other Korean Zerg players. I say some of the other because, again, the player pool is a little bit smaller. It is mainly like Solar and Shin as the 2 Korean Zergs that actively play. And even then, I think Shin is like every now and then. I think Solar has been a little bit more active in the SC Evo scene, and I would imagine potentially this has been a little bit more prevalent. Some solutions proposed to us involve changes that will directly hinder Zerg's mid-game and late-game performances based on the surprisingly close margin within some of these games have played out. We think that can be a problem. That problem can potentially be addressed with more conservative changes instead. But we are open to quickly responding with further nerfs if the snowballing effect of 1 to 2 delayed Hydras is not as strong as anticipated. So I guess we'll be keeping an eye on the ZVP matchup and on these Hydra timings and Hydra all-ins. I will say that in general, that is an issue that has been plaguing SC Evolution, is shorter games and very few longer and later games and later matches. But I don't know if that's necessarily the case in the current meta. Up next was the Lurker. Lurker has also been adjusted. Increased attack range from 7 to 8, so we do have a buff when it comes to the range of the Lurker, the attack range. Changed attack damage from 25 to 25 plus 5 versus light. So that means it's going to have reduced damage versus anything that is not light. Interesting. So reduced damage. Decreased attack damage increase per upgrade from +3 to +2 as well. So in general, the strength of the Lurker has been reduced, outside of course, the range being increased. One of the units most hurt by StarCraft II's smoother engine mechanics is the Lurker. Their role is a defensive area denial unit in the mid-game, is often undercut by how quickly they can be overwhelmed by a swarm of units, especially the Marine. The StarCraft II design team worked around this with the StarCraft II Lurker by simply making it a late-game unit with monstrous range and power. Interesting. We have acted on many different ideas in the past to try to avoid going down a similar path, a similar road, and maintain a healthy gap between the design of Brood War and StarCraft II Lurkers in SC Evo Complete. Unfortunately, none of them have been successful, so we are resorting to the same approach. I think this is a pretty important line here, is that for the most part, and I've been echoing this as well, for the most part, StarCraft Evolution has been trying to make sure that the Brood War counterparts are distinctly different from the SC2 counterparts, just because the races work differently, and they do want to make sure that they're just different units and different armies, and they have different roles for the most part. But it looks like that there are some cases here where they're accepting that can't always be the case. And they're willing to kind of put things in line with how things are in SC2. It's understandable, like it can be hard to keep them unique and to keep them different, especially because at the end of the day, because it is a ports, like brutal units, they do work differently in the StarCraft II engine, and that has to be taken into account. Likewise, the economy has to be taken into account as well, and all of that nature. The micro potential, the unit control. So with that, it looks like the Lurker is going to have a bit of a change here. One of the interesting things here is, so quickly catching up, to partly mitigate the increase in range, and especially to avoid problematic mid-game power spikes against Zerg, Roche Ravager, and Protoss, we are decreasing the effectiveness of Lurkers against non-light units. Notably, this does not reduce its damage against Marines, so expect a few Lurkers will deter them much more strongly than previously. I was going to say that this does mean this is going to be an interesting kind of impact in ZVZ. Again, we didn't really get a lot of mirror matchups. Even when we were covering StarCraft Evolution, ZVZs were very rare. I mean, in general, there aren't really many Zerg players active at the moment in StarCraft 2, and in StarCraft Evolution, even less so. So I kind of have to take them at their word when it comes to speaking on ZVZ. I mean, Lurkers are a big power spike against Roach Ravager-based play, but I also understand that Lurker is less mobile, so it's a little bit more vulnerable and prone to Ravager biles as well. So I can't really speak too much on how strong they are in ZVZ, but I mean, now they're going to be weaker. Now Roach Ravager is going to be more viable against the Lurker, and I'm a little bit concerned that might negatively impact Brood War Zerg in ZVZ a little bit too much, just because where else can they go when they're teching, right? It has to be Hydra into Lurker, then into, I guess, maybe Ultras, or into Spellcasters, sorry, I should say, into Spellcasters from there. But yeah, it's interesting, and again, I have to take them at their word for it. Even when we're casting StarCraft Evolution, like ZVZ is very rare, so yeah, we'll see. We'll see how this impacts ZVZ. Keep an eye on it. Up next, we have changes to the Spire and to the meter. Spire decreased build cost from 200 150 to 150 150, and decreased build time as well. Meanwhile, when it comes to the Mutalisk, increased movement acceleration from 5.86 to 8.75. Changed the radius, which I believe is change the radius of the unit itself, change the separation radius as well from 0.4 to 0.5, and increased attack range from 4.5 to 5. Interesting. So increased range attack, and likewise increased movement acceleration. I will say that the change to the Spire is very reminiscent to the change that we recently had in StarCraft 2. And yeah, they do allude to that here as well, that they're kind of making this change in line with
Hold on.
okay.
Hold on. The stream is coming back alive. I hope everybody can hear us now, but we might have missed some things you said about the Spire.
Oh no, not like this. Hopefully it's okay. So hopefully we're back. The next change here is honestly quite interesting, and this is also specifically for ZVZ, that is the Queen. So Parasite can no longer target frenzied units. Spawn Broodlings can no longer target frenzied units either. So big changes here to the Queen. This is specific and also decrease Broodlings cast range, Spawn Broodlings cast range. I mean, that will affect all matchups, to be fair. So now it is going to be, the Queen is going to be a little bit more vulnerable. I mean, Spawn Broodlings is a very, very powerful ability. But can no longer target frenzied units. This is specifically in regards to ultras, as ultras do have that frenzy tag. And this is in regards to, once again, ZVZ, how apparently ultras will just get one shot by queens. Like, you build up your Hydra lurker into queens, you shut down the ultras, and they just were not viable in ZVZ. And now they're going to be another option against lurker tech. I don't know how often Zerg players would go into ultras though. Like, in my mind, especially against a more lurker heavy composition, especially with the changes, I would imagine that working towards Broodlords or working towards Skyzerg would be more viable there, especially if you had mutas. But yeah, it's an interesting change. Now ultras have more viability when it comes to trying to break through siege lines, but I still don't know how viable that is. Again, like lurker versus lurker is very much so a thing in SC2 ZVZ. I would imagine it's a thing here as well, to go to, once your opponent goes into lurkers, to go from Road Ravager into lurkers yourself, into lurker Viper play. Like, that just makes sense to me. But yeah, apparently they just want to make ultras more viable here as another option. Speaking of ultras, they made them smaller, so the model is smaller, the radius is smaller as well. This is actually in line with StarCraft II, so likewise we're just taking more things that were, applicable in StarCraft II and applying them here in SC Evo. Hydrogen decreased build time, and Defiler decreased build time as well. Oh, interesting. Okay. Apparently they're just more in line with Brood War values. Yeah, not the biggest of changes, but decreased nonetheless. In general, it looks like a lot of these changes were mainly in reference to, I mean, some of these changes were mainly in reference to ZVZ, but the Muta change is going to be interesting to be able to promote Muta play in some of the other matchups. That's something that I'm looking forward to for sure. And again, we'll see how ZVZ is affected when it comes to some of these other changes with the Lurker and with the Queen as well. If we even get to cast any ZVZ, like, I still not convinced, Pappy. Yeah. When it comes to the Protoss changes, we have the Pylon nerf. Now, this is mainly in regards to cannon rushes. Cannon rushes are very, very powerful. We casted, Classic Dido or Cannon Rush, I think, to Rebellion recently as well. Cannon rushes can be terrifying, so for those who don't know, the Brood War Pylon was beefier, had more HP, had more shields than the SC2 Pylon. That made defending against cannon rushes much more difficult, so this will be softening them up a little bit. I believe the Pylon is still stronger in Brood War. It's still a stronger Pylon, but not as much as previously. SC2 Pylon is 200-200. Brood War Pylon was 300-300, now reduced to 250-250. So not as strong as it was before, and hopefully this does make cannon rushes a little bit weaker and not as dominant as they once were. Heading on down here, we have the change to the shield battery. We have the decreased build time from 25 to 21 seconds. This does mean that you can maybe scout something a little bit later and not be punished as much when it comes to reactive batteries. True. So they do finish up a little bit faster. Dragoon increased movement speed from 4.11 to 4.13. Interesting. This slight increase helps the Dragoon match the movement speed of the SC2 Zergling before metabolic boost research is complete. Interesting. So Dragoons are going to be, it's going to be a little more viable to be active with Dragoons early on. I guess to apply a little bit of pressure in early games. This is specifically for early games EVP. Before link speed is done, which is interesting. It's interesting that change was made, but I guess it does allow for a little bit more pressure to be applied from the Protoss player in the early game. It's a very, very niche change. It's very, very niche for like that niche specific kind of situation. Up next, we had a Gravitic Drive, the shuttle. Increased Gravitic Drive research cost from 125 to 150. Increased Gravitic Drive research time as well. Interesting. I mean, shuttle, so winding it back a little bit, and we see a big change to the Reaver as well. So there's a lot to get into here. They both come hand in hand. But Reaver drops and Robo openers were very common in every matchup. PvP, PvZ, and PvT. Like, this is the go-to. And this is maybe one of the bigger criticisms that I have of SC Evolution, is that it does feel like a lot of the brutal races are very limited in how they can play, more so than SC2. Like, there are less options, there are less things of it. I mean, there are less units, of course, but it does feel like there are more limitations. And the go-to, for the most part, one of the go-to builds in all matchups was to open up Robo, to go Shuttle, to go Reaver. But they are going to be addressing that quite heavily here. One, so again, increased resource time and cost for the Shuttle to come online. Meanwhile, looks like some big changes to the Reaver here. Reavers are no longer massive. Scarabs remain massive. Interesting. So Reavers, as they're no longer massive, are now going to be a little bit more vulnerable to, say, like Viper play, for example, abductions, as they cannot abduct massive units. I didn't even know that that applied to Reaver, but sure. Interesting. Decreased build time from 39.2 to 35.7. Decreased attack period from 2.68 to 2.59. Okay, they're going to be attacking faster. They're going to be being built faster as well. The behavior of Scarabs retracking Adepts, Stalkers, Dark Templar after their shades is no longer restricted to teleportations, completing inside the original weapon range of the attacking Reaver, and now will retrack the target at any range so long as the teleport completed is in vision of the player owning the Reaver. That is crazy. Okay, so interesting. They're specifically calling out other Protoss units. So I guess this wouldn't be applicable to I don't, obviously it wouldn't be applicable to like to War Prism Micro, Shuttle Micro, Medevac Micro, anything like that. But that is kind of crazy. This behavior is no longer cancelled if the Reaver that fired the Scarab is destroyed. That's fine. The behavior is cancelled if the Reaver is lifted by Phoenix's graviton beam. This behavior is still cancelled. Oh, hey, they addressed the picked up by a transport. This behavior is still cancelled if the Reaver is picked up by a transport or if the player owning the Reaver loses vision of the target. Scarabs will continue to track non-teleporting targets as before, even without vision. Okay. So that is a huge change for PvP. I'm curious as to the rationale behind that. You could maybe argue that again, Blink Stalkers were a little bit too viable against the Reavers because you could just blink back, blink away, and shut down a Scarab shot. Decrease Scarab build time 4.69 to 4.38, and increase Scarab damage research costs from 125 to 150. Okay, let's get into this. The Reaver is meant to be the backbone of the Protoss mid game. It is. Yet it continues to be somewhat inconsistent in that role. This is something that it's difficult to balance just because the Reaver, there is obviously counterplay available against the Reaver, and obviously they're now limiting that. They're taking some of that away from certain units to make the Reaver more viable, specifically in PvP. We see this as a result of being undertuned overall, rather than due to any particular glaring weaknesses. So we are aligning its build time to match that of the StarCraft II Disruptor, and reducing the attack period and Scarab build time to match the Brood War values. In exchange for this consistency, as well as buffing other Protoss tech branches this patch, we are trading away some of the ease in getting Robotics Bay upgrades. We want to treat Gravitic Drive Shuttle Reaver Harassment in particular as a committal tech choice rather than a default. Interesting. To be able to do this, we're going to be seeing some more changes. It looks like, I'll be honest, it looks like Protoss got the most amount of attention this patch. But to be able to pull this off, you will have to buff some of the other tech paths to make them more viable. I just, coming into this conversation, we just spoke about how Robo openers and Reaver shuttle drops are the default. They are the go-to. They are how you open up in almost every matchup. So it looks like they want to try to break that up a little bit here and make it more viable to play in other ways. We'll see if they're successful in doing so. We'll see. The removal of the massive tag allows the Reaver to be picked up by Phoenix's graviton beam. True. And the new tracking behavior makes the Reaver a stronger response to Blink Stalkers. It does. These changes are intended to move Brutal Protoss versus SC2 Protoss to a similar dynamic to earlier eras of Legacy of the Void Protoss versus Protoss, where Robo Facility greater than Twilight Council, greater than Stargate, greater than Robo Facility. Interesting. This does cause some serious implications here in regards to PvP. It's pretty huge just because Stalkers are kind of like the bread and butter in PvP. We'll see if that does force. I mean, obviously, another way to try to counteract that is with War Prism Micro. Like War Prism Micro should still be able to save Stalkers and try to break some of these Scarab shots. So that might just be the go-to in PvP, or we might see something different. Curious. Obviously, I think they want, because of the change to the massive tag, they want players to go Stargate against Reavers. That's what they want out of the players, but whether they get that, we'll see. Next is the High Templar. We spoke earlier that they need to adjust some of the other tech paths to make them more viable. Increase Sonic Storm research time from 71.4 to 78.6. So increase research time for Psystorm. Hallucination no longer requires research to cast. Oh, there you go. This is more in line with like sentries. It does mean that scouting is going to be a little more accessible here to the Brood War Protoss. Decrease hallucination duration from 60.27 to 56.25. Increase hallucination energy cost from 50 to 75. Hallucinations are instantly destroyed by harmful energy-based spell effects, including Disruption Web, Blinding Cloud, and Yamato Cannon. Okay, interesting. Instantly destroyed. Curious. Hallucinations are no longer revealed by detection effects. That's a weird change. Because they are revealed in SC2. Okay, interesting. It's been our design policy to avoid altering the Brood War tech tree as much as possible to preserve the original feel of the Brood War races. However, we have made exceptions for drastic balance reasons, as with the Supply Depot or with useless units such as the Scout. How useless, baby. Hallucination is a useless upgrade. I like how they keep. Oh no, we're back to the high school level verbiage. Oh no. Okay.
Where are the degenerate rushes?
the degen rushes are back. I noticed that earlier. There was a line that I did point out, which was I think it was in the Zerg portion. God. Oh, I think it was during the Hydra. It's okay, it's okay. But yeah, there was another word that stood out in a really weird way. But yeah, we're back to it. Oh god. Yes, yes. So the degenerate upgrade that is hallucination. Yes, we are unable to give it a non-trivial research costs and time that justify it. Okay. As such, we're simply unlocking the ability by default. Hallucinations also can no longer follow the same rules as the StarCraft Sentry hallucinations. No longer follow, and instead follow the brutal rules. They're not revealed by detectors, but they can be destroyed by spells on contact. The adjustment to Sonic Storm research time aligns to Brood War and SC2 values. Okay. In general, I think this is a good thing. This is less about like, oh, it's like a useless upgrade, but like more about, again, the viability and the strength of scouting that the Protoss counterpart has in SC2, and bringing that somewhat in line here with Brood War, I think is a positive thing, for sure. Definitely could have been worded in a better way, but it's fine. Dark Archon decreased Maelstrom research costs from 150 to 100. Mind Control can no longer target allied units. Oh, apparently it could. Okay, that's a good change. Despite the reduction in gas costs of Dark Archons in previous patches, Temple Archives openers remain rare. They do. We hope to address this with a generous buff to the research cost of Maelstrom. This is, what we mentioned earlier, how they're trying to buff these units, quote unquote, and make them more of a viable and more of a tempting option and tech path. I don't know if this is enough, but we'll see. Temple Archives openers remain rare. We hope to address this with a generous buff to research cost of Maelstrom. Mind Control is no longer able to target allied units in team games. Yeah, it's fine. This prevents scenarios where Brood War Protoss player does not need to leave their corner of the map in order to safely build their Terran and Zerg supply accounts. Up next is the Scouts again. Let's go. Is this like for the 6th time? Jesus. Okay, what do you got for us? Scout decreased build cost from 200, 100 to 175, 100. So a little bit cheaper mineral wise. Decrease build time by 2 seconds. Okay, from 34.3 to 32.1. Decrease HP from 150 to 100. Oh, okay, so they're going to be a little more fragile. Interesting. Increase move acceleration, so they're going to be more mobile. To compensate from 4.2 to 4.46. Decrease movement lateral acceleration from 4.2 to 2.8. 3 to 2. Increase movement speed so again, the whole mobility thing. Decrease with thrusters movement speed increase from 0.79 to 0.7. That's the upgrade. Decrease antimatter missile attack period from 0.98 to 0.89. So again, it does make them more. It does make it a little bit easier to kite with them. They're gonna turn into mutas. Let's go. Increased dual photon blaster attack damage bonus +2 versus light to +3 versus light. Hey, so now they're going to be more viable against mutas. Increased dual photon blaster attack damage point 0.07 to 0.12. Okay, we're reworking the scout again. To date, the scout remains a unit rarely seen at the professional level and reviled by casual players. The previous reworks failed to accomplish the goal of turning the scout from. How many times are we going to say useless in this patch? Oh god, in the patch notes, it's all useless, baby. It's all useless. It's a useless unit. It was in Brood War. It is something that meaningfully filled gaps in the Protoss arsenal and instead created a lopsided noob. What are we saying? What? Create a lopsided noob stomping unit. Okay, is that what it is? Is that the tag that we've assigned to it in game? It's a noob stomping unit. It's similar to a massive unit. Okay. The overtuned stat totals of previous scout iterations and our intuitions about which parts of the original scout to preserve prevented us from seeing these pitfalls. We are adjusting new variables this rework, starting with the HP. It has been cut down by 50 points, this critical nerf to durability, and consequently to anti-ground combat. Both discourages mass scout gameplay and creates enough room to buff stats that promote scouting, work harassment, and drop defense. Notably, the increased damage point and decreased lateral acceleration make controlling the scout non-trivial. Players may find their scouts missing shots or taking slow, exaggerated U-turns, as when turning less than 180 degrees with the Oracle or the Void Ray. Okay, interesting. Yeah, it's we'll see. Like the scout we'll see what happens in game. The scout is one of those things that it's been changed so much in the history of StarCraft Evolution. It's like the Marine. It's like the Marine and the Academy upgrades and the medic. Like they've just been changed and adjusted so much. We'll see if it's almost like the BC. The BC is the other one as well. There's like a couple of key units that just get changed like every single patch. We'll see. We'll see if these changes do make this a little bit more tempting to get into, especially in certain situations. We'll see. Corsair. Increased turn rates, increased stationary turning rate as well. In Brood War, the Corsair is quintessential muta counter. Moreover, in SC Evo completes, the Corsair is slower than the SC2 Mutalisk. It must also overwhelm the Mutalisk increase passive health regeneration. These changes to turn rate vastly improve its responsiveness and should give Protoss players the opportunities they need to extract value from their Corsairs against Mutas. Cool. Arbiter, final change. Increased build cost from 300 to 100 350. Decreased stasis field research time from 71 to 74. Considering the explosion in tech branch variety and efficacy, we believe this patch introduces. I don't know if that's true. I don't know if I'd call this explosive. So we changed the scout. We made Maelstrom cheaper, and now you get free hallucinations. Explosive changes. Okay. Brutal Protoss will have an easier time transitioning into late games and producing more varied army compositions. We are offsetting this by making Arbiters, the pinnacle of Protoss tech tree, more expensive. Interesting. To me, this matters a little bit less. I think what matters more is kind of like the changes that they made to the shuttle, to the Reaver, and how that is going to be impacting I guess, I mean, PvP is one of the matches we do get quite a lot of, actually. So I'm curious to see how PvP does change and whether they are able to promote Stargate play or not. Again, as I mentioned, I can still see players being able to counteract Reaver play with Shuttle Micro, so with Will Prism Micro. So I don't know if this will accomplish the goal that they want when it comes to forcing a different kind of tech path from the opposing Protoss player. So I'm really curious to see what changes happen there in regards to the Reaver and in regards to the shuttle. Some of the other changes that were made here, like the decreased build time, the decreased stack period, will just make it more viable against other races, not just in PvP. Like these are changes that implicates other matchups, not just PvP. So I feel like this is still going to be the go-to be honest. The Maelstrom change is nice. I do like the idea of Archon, of Dark Archon play. It's quite rare, but we do see it every now and then. It's always very explosive, always a lot of fun. I hope that this does incentivize players to potentially open up in such a way, or have the mid game be a little bit more reliant on Dark Archons. Whether we're going to get there, we'll see. We shall see. I would have assumed that one of the ways to incentivize like storm-based openers instead, and Twilight Council Temple Archives play, would have been to have buffed the High Templar, but they opted not to. So yeah, I'm curious when it comes to Storm, when it comes to Archons. I would have assumed that would have been a way to incentivize players to play a different way, but they didn't do that. So yeah, I don't know if the robo play is de-incentivized enough, to be honest. But we'll see. We'll see. We'll see how all the changes come together. The scout, it's hard to say. Like they've changed the scout so often. Like I don't know. At this point, like the scout might just have a bad enough reputation where players just do not care anymore about it, and they just won't embrace it. Again, it's just such a niche unit. It's a very very niche unit, and it's had a really hard time finding its place. But we'll see. Best of luck to the scout. Best of luck. Aye. Other bug fixes here, just a couple of bug fixes here and there. I'm just fixing things up. In general, as I mentioned before, the Protoss changes are a little bit more in depth. I'm a little bit surprised that after all these months, there are so few Terran changes, and how niche the Zerg changes feel as well. Like I think in my mind, I was assuming some like big, like sweeping, like meta defining and meta changing like play coming into a new year, but it's very very minimal, which is surprising to me. Just because typically the SC Evo team are a lot more willing to be more experimental and a lot more bold with their changes at times. I mean, I say at times because I remember that I still remember that time where they had like this massive patch, and then they walked everything back after after I think it was like the Korean scene. Like they had their own thoughts about it, and they had a certain backlash to some of the changes. I think specifically when it comes to changing the brutal units too much, which I don't think I don't like. I hope that isn't the case here, where they're like a little bit afraid to change too much of the brutal units, and they're less willing to change things for the better. Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it does feel like things are moving in the right direction. I do appreciate that in a couple of these comments, they've said themselves, like, you know what, we did our best to like keep them unique. But you know what, there are certain cases where like we can just move things a little bit more in line with SE2, and they don't have to be too distinctly unique from each other, and that we're willing to like accept that. I think that's like a positive thing. I think the next step, yeah, again, would be to like be willing to change them. In such a way for the benefit of the game, to benefit the game itself, to benefit like the fact that again it is in a different engine. But we'll see. We shall see. Curious to see how Protoss specifically changes this upcoming patch. We shall see. So we had the degen patch. Is this the useless patch? Is that? Oh god. Ah no. Not saying that the patch is useless, but it's just it was the word of the patch, Bap. It was the word. Oh no. Regardless, best of luck, of course. Best of luck to the SCEvo team. Best of luck. As again, we should be getting back to casting SCEvo events soon. Be able to do so soon as the season does ramp up. Up next, we do have our events. The big notable land events, of course, being StarCraft Madness. This did take place over the weekend. Was a multi-day event and was covered and sponsored by Platinum Esports, and I believe by there was another sponsor, but yeah, but Platinum Esports did step in. Streamer Zone, that's it. Streamer Zone. They sent a bunch of their players as well over to Oklahoma. It was a big offline LAN event happening in the University of Oklahoma, which is really cool to see. As a result, we had some local talent and we had some international players as well. Streamer Zone, they sent over both Geralt and Jumi to dominate the event. They were sent over. We had Geralt and Jimmy having fun as well. They did play random in the playoffs. They excelled, of course, in the group stage. We saw Rushy. I think Rushy was actually casting the event as well. I want to say it was casting. We had J Money. We had Groovy. We had Zesty as well. Make Jr. Again, we have a couple of regulars that we do notice that we do see in these online tournaments. But again, Geralt and Jimmy were kind of like the big players, the big names that were coming into the scene. Geralt, he came first in the group stage, not dropping a single series, did drop a map to Jimmy. Meanwhile, when it came to the playoffs, Geralt, he did actually drop extra maps as well. When he played random, did drop a map to Alexandros, and likewise, did drop a map to Zesty in the semifinals as well. So a very impressive play there by Zesty. Jimmy 3-0'd his way to the grand finals, where he went up against Geralt, and we had a 4-2 best of 7 in favor of Geralt. GG. GG well played. I do recommend checking out social media for all the photos taken. There were some wild pics, by the way. There was some wild stuff. But streamers, then they had some fun. Basically, they toured Geralt and Jimmy around the Americas, and they took a bunch of photos. A bunch of memes were had, and some things that will never be forgotten, I'm sure. SMH my head. So they had a fun time. They had a fun time together. Again, congratulations to Geralt for claiming the win here. Shout out to Jimmy for coming in second place. And really cool to see that we had some international representation in this event as well. Really cool to see. And I hope that we're able to see more of these in the future. All right, SCHistorian, he was also there. He might have even had some interviews. True. Might have gone all the way. SCHistorian. Also, I saw the image of him with Miniclem. I can see the semblance a little bit. It's one of those things where it's just so rare to see a StarCraft II player with so much hope in their face. Like it's still there. The hopium is still there, Pappy. Let's go. So it's yeah. Shout out to Medic Jr. God damn it. That leads us into RSL, into the rival StarCraft League. The RSL playoffs did begin last week. We were, of course, co-streaming the playoffs. Playoffs did take place, and we had our initial upper bracket quarterfinals. We had Mara versus Down, another rematch. They played so often over the past couple of weeks in the GSL CK, and now here in the RSL as well. Mara did take down Down 3-0. These were very short games. Really fast games, really fast matches, really fast 3-0 in favor of Maru. Remember, Zan did defeat Maru recently, but in a longer, later game. In a long, late game, in the macro game, Zan came out on top. He never got there. He never got there in this series. Maru did shut him down 3-0. We then had Beyond, and Beyond took down Cure 3-2. It was a much more, do I want to say close? It was an intense series. It was also really short. It was really, really short. We saw a lot of cheese, a lot of proxy, more cheese, more proxies, more all-ins. Really fast series up until, was it Mothership or 10,000 feet? Towards the end, we had one macro game. I think it was 10,000 feet. We had one macro game, which did last quite some time. It was like a half-hour game. It was crazy. So we did get to see a little bit more out of Beyond and Cure, but for the most part, it was still a hyper-aggressive series. Beyond did barely take down Cure 3-2. GG. GG, well played. Beyond takes down Cure. I was favoring Cure in that series, but again, it was a really chaotic series. And now we have a TVT between Maru and Beyond that could go either way. I do lean towards Maru. I would have favored Cure versus Maru, as he's beaten Maru before in EWC. I would have favored Cure to make it all the way to the next round, to the upper bracket finals, but he will not have the chance, at least not yet, to face off against him. Instead, knocked down to lower brackets. We then had Max. He took down a Hero 3-0. Really fast series, really fast matchup. Hero, he was hyper aggressive, and Max shut down the all-ins and shut down the aggression real fast and real quick. Again, really fast series there between Max and Hero. Meanwhile, Trigger took down Rogue 3-2. We had an intense back and forth. It was very close, very clutch back and forth between the Trigger and Rogue. Barely went in favor of Trigger in the end. GG. GG, well played. With that, congratulations to Trigger for advancing on. We then have purely mirror matchups. We have Mara versus Beyond and Trigger versus Max in the upper bracket semis. Likewise, no player has been eliminated yet. It is double elimination, so Zan and Cure, Hero and Rogue are still in the tournament as well. Still in the event. So best of luck to all the players in the RSL. We also did get some videos released, of course, regarding their assembly of Zeratul, and the unboxing of Zeratul as well, which was interesting. Unfortunately, there was no painting. Unfortunately, they just assembled. And it was like a speed run assemble as well. Like, But at least they made some videos regarding their sponsorship with the Archon Studios, and I'm hoping they do a little bit more with it in the future. Like assembling Zeratul is great and all. We want a painting stream. We want like a 1v1 between Tasteless and State or something, or Ziggy and Gemini. Get him in there, Pappy. Get him in there. So I hope to see that at some point. Have some fun with it, Pappy. Have some fun with it. Otherwise, up next, we do have our next big event. That was the WardiTV Team League Season 10. Now, the big question is, did Xeratus Esports finally play a game? Did they... Have they finally played? The answer is... no. Okay. Were they not scheduled to play? Have they been... Yeah, like, if you look here, everything's been rescheduled to the very, very end. Okay, lovely. Everything has been rescheduled. But let's catch up on the Team League. Again, Wardy has been hosting his own kind of makeshift Team League here, Pro League format, smaller teams, and a massive group stage. We do have a big group stage here. Quickly double-checking. So we're looking at the 19th. So from the 19th of March, we did have not CGHS against Platinum Heroes. Not CGHS, they did claim the series 5-1. Bonnie took down Fiant. Hero took down Gunner. We had Fiant and Sebestis. I'm getting some deja vu. I feel like I've gone over these scorelines before. Yeah, we did, right? No. But Fiant and Sebestis, they do win the 2v2. They do put a point on the board. Bunny takes down Ledalix, Shin takes down Sebestis, and Bunny and Hero take down Fiant and Ledalix. So big win here for not CJ Enters, my condolences to Platinum Heroes. That leads us into Team Liquid versus Platinum Heroes as well, where Fiant took down Mana. Big win there for Fiant. Kira takes down Sebestis. Kira and Skillus, they win the 2v2. Skillus does take down Art, Cure over Sebestis, and Mana and Skillus over Fiant and Ledalix. For those of you curious, regardless of score, every game is played. So that's why we have these kind of like bigger gaps. Like we have like 6-0s, 5-1s, things of that nature. It is still a best of 7, but all games are still played regardless of score. The reasoning for this is because very often these games are played ahead of time. So because they don't really know what the final score is going to be, they just have everyone play their matches, submit their replays to be casted by Wardy at a later date. Up next is Team Liquid versus not CJ. Oh, two of the bigger teams in the group. This was a spicy one. Shin took down Skillus in the best of 1 on Winter Madness. Mana took down Hero on Title Citadel. Big win there for Mana. Team Liquid, they won the 2v2. Kieran Skillus over Bunny and Shin. We then had Cure over Hero. Yo, big wins here for Team Liquid. Then Cure over Bunny as well. Hero and Shin, they did win the 2v2 matchup, but it was too little too late. Team Liquid take down alt CJ Antis 4-2. Big win here for TL. They do not end up in first place yet because there's still no SG there as well. True. Big teams here in this group. Big teams. But GG well played here to Team Liquid. Again, we still have a couple more days left to wrap up the group stage. So a couple of days remaining to wrap up all these matches. Up next, we had Group B. Group B, we have no updates. Never mind. It looks like, we've had no updates here for Group B. So it looks like there's been a bit of a delay in the schedule a little bit. Again, scheduling all these matches can be a little bit messy at times. But group stage should finish up by the time we have the next podcast. True. The real prediction is, will Xeratus Esports play a single match? We'll see. And also, will Spirit play a single match? True, he still hasn't played. Oh, God. Spirit still hasn't played, but where is Spirit? Where is Biot there? Aye. Wait, did he forfeit? No. It looks like he played against Gabe. Gabe beat Spirits in Polish Power versus the three Musketeers. It's such an awkward thing to say. And Spirit, he won against Scarlet in Polish Power versus Shopify Rebellion. Okay, so it looks, because if you remember, Spirit's matches were delayed. And Spirit, he played his game against Gabe, he played his game against Scarlet, but they have not played the 2v2s yet. It's getting messy. It's getting a little bit messy here. But the 2v2s have yet to be played out. Again, it's just like a scheduling thing, I would imagine. I think this is partially because Geralt was traveling. Remember, Geralt, he was traveling to the Americas for the StarCraft Madness event. So, yeah, hopefully they can get those matches underway. Hopefully. Up next, we do have updates, or we have our next tournaments. We have our modded tournaments. We do have StarCraft Evolution League number 20. Now, we'll be covering this event ourselves on the channel, but right now our schedule is very booked up. It's very backed up. So most likely we won't be covering this event for another couple of weeks. So we will get there. We will get there. I do appreciate that we do have an updated map pool. We still have are we getting some new maps? Still for the premiere. From when was the beginning? We have Kion, we have Radion as well, and Karis Passage. So I appreciate we have some new maps. When it comes to the car map pool, we're going to be using Celestial Enclave, Mothership, and Ruby Rock. For this event, we had Björn. Björn, he was able to pop off. He took down Prome 2-0, took down Rumia 2-0. Rumia took down Cure. That's a big upset. Oh my god. Also, Cure played. Cure, it's very rare to see him compete in this event. So big shout out to Rumia for bringing Cure down. Björn took down Solo 3-2 in the best of 5, and Björn made it to the grand finals. Meanwhile, Shin also made his way through. Took down Mang Russell, took down Middlevik K, took down Classic 3-2. A spicy ace match there as well. Very, very intense semifinals. And sometimes this happens where the semifinals are a little bit more competitive than the grand finals. Björn takes down Shin 3-0. GG. GG, well played. Björn does 3-0 Shin in the grand finals. Again, we weren't able to cover these matches, so I don't really know as to how the matches played out and how the meta has been shifting. We'll be casting these replays, but again, in like 2, 3, 4 weeks' time. Once we have an open slot, we'll get there. We will get there, but GG well played. Congratulations to Björn for claiming the series. That leads us into the SEL doubles number 1. Whether we get more of these in the future, hard to say. Actually, number 2 has been announced for the 14th of April. Okay. There's a second edition of this. But for the first one, what are the rules here? Map 1, Brutal SC2, and Brutal versus SC2 only. Oh, and they do allow SC2 versus Brood War. Okay, interesting. They do allow for that. Unique format. When it comes to this 2v2 event, I believe this was partnered with Thermal Circuits, which also did provide some points. So did provide points. Here we had Solar and Björn as the duo, taking down Goblin and Blask. Interesting pairing. They took down Lambo and Harstim in the semifinals, went all the way to the Ace match, went all the way to Game 5. This is honestly a really good promotional event for StarCraft Evolution, just because Thermal Circuits does bring together players that maybe otherwise wouldn't really touch StarCraft Evolution. I'm looking at Lambo and Harstim. Like Harambo, they wouldn't really touch that. Nightmare doesn't really play StarCraft Evolution. Who else comes to mind? I think those are really the only ones actually. And Goblin, Blask, Christiana, like there are some certain key players here that wouldn't really touch the game, and this is just a way to try to like introduce them and maybe to pique their interest in melee, and maybe even just drag them into the base game itself. So I do think this is a really nice promotional tool, and we had some interesting maps used as well. Team Biodome, Meme Catcher, Jacob Summit. Okay. Interesting. I don't know if they're brutal maps, but interesting maps nonetheless. And in the end, so Solar and Beyond, they made it all the way to the grand finals. Meanwhile, Shin and Nightmare, they took down Honmono and 3-point. They took down Thermal and Skillus in a 3-2 matchup. Once again, just like the other series, just like the other StarCraft Evolution event, the semifinals went all the way to the Ace match. We had some very intense semis, but the grand finals was one-sided. Bit of a feels bad, man. Solar and Beyond, they 3-0 Shin and Nightmare. Funnily enough, Björn and Shin were involved in both finals. And same scoreline. Feels bad, man. As that leads us into the Rewind Cup. Interesting. Leads us into the Rewind Cup. This was also played in StarCraft Evolution. This was organized by Zardiant. Zardiant, he was organizing the event. He still played in the event itself. He went down to Iosop in the semifinals. Deathmars took down Rake. We had Deathmars 3-2 over Iosop in the grand finals. GG, well played. I might reach out and try to get my hands on said replays as well. Again, right now we're just really backed up when it comes to events, when it comes to casting. But we'll eventually catch up. We'll get there. We'll get there eventually. GG, well played. Shout out to Zardians for potentially hosting the first of many events. We'll see. We'll see if he does end up organizing more of these in the future. In regards to the Rewind Cup. Up next, we have our amateur events. First is going to be the 2026 Season 1 major events for the Amateur League. Okay, so the season is upon us. Here we have all the invited players, all the seeded players from their results, from their tournament results, from their performances throughout the course of the Amateur League season. Okay, so we got the best of the best. We initially have the Initiate edition for those that are between the leagues of bronze and platinum. Here we have Saito, we have Lucid's Shadow, we have Dollar Tree Dipper, a lot of players, X-Decker as well, a lot of players do recognize, but here we have Eri Learns, he takes down Dollar Tree Dipper 2-0, takes down X-Decker 3-0, and takes down Lucid's Shadow 4-0 in the grand finals. Big win here for Eri Learns. GG, well played. Does claim the win. Up next, we do have the Veteran Edition. This is for Diamond 3 and Diamond 2. Here we have our round of 8 brackets. We have Balimko. Balimko takes down Review, takes down Barks 3-1, and takes down Serral in the grand finals. Went all the way to game 7, the ace match. Balimko takes down Serral 4-3. GG, well played. Congratulations to Balimko. Very intense finals there. That's what we want, baby. Best of 7 ace match. Up next, we have the Prestige Edition, Diamond 1 to Masters 2. Here we had Beast, Set, Mathlix, Ophthalmologist, Steez, Defiance, Boreal, and Hidditch. A lot of players we are very familiar with. Here we had Steez popping off. Steez takes down Defiance 2-0, takes down Hidditch 3-1, and takes down Ophthalmologist. Also went all the way to the ace match, all the way to game 7. GG, Steez takes down Ophthalmologist 4-3. GG, well played. Big win there for Steez. That leads us into the Elite Edition for M1 to GM. We actually had a decent showing of players. We had Azura, Inexorable. We had Nickract as well. Those are the notables that come to mind. As unfortunately, they were all seated on the same side. I would say the top 3 players in this tournament are Nickract, Azura, and Inexorable. And they're all on the same side of the bracket. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. But Nickract, he 3-0s Azura, and he 4-0s Nazov, who I'm not familiar with. Or Nazov. But GG, well played. Congratulations. Nickract does claim the win. Does win the Elite Edition of the 2026 Season 1 Amateur League tournament. GG. GG, well played. Congratulations. As Nickract does claim the win. That leads us into the Thermal 2v2 Circuit Season 2 Bonus Cup number 6. Okay. We do have our bonus cup here. Because it's a bonus cup, it's single elimination. Single elimination, not double elimination. And we did have our top players. We had Bjorn and Solar. They made it to the semifinals 2-0 over Def Mars and Zardiant. I do recall that this was a crazy upset initially where Def Mars and Zardiant took down Shameless and GG Machine. GG Machine and Shameless, they're usually one of the top players here, but they got knocked down early. Likewise, Hero and Maru, they were popping off. An unlikely pairing. These are the 2 best players in all of Korea, and they joined forces here for the 2v2 circuit. They 2-0 Serral and Zugilang, they 2-1 Bjorn and Solar, and they 3-2 Skillist and a Laser. GG. GG, well played here in Maru. They do claim the win in those grand finals. Skills and Laser, they had a good run themselves, of course. They took down Euthermal and Goblin. They took down Showtime and Spirit. But again, they did fall to Hero and Maru in the end. I wasn't able to quite catch the finals specifically. Of course, we were admitting the main event, and we were just running things behind the scenes, so we weren't able to pay too much attention to the games being played themselves. But we might be able to provide coverage at some point at a later date as well. I say at some point because, you know, we got a backlog. We got. I want to cast everything, Pappy. We can't cast everything. Not like this. Feels bad, man. Feels bad. We'll make it work. Up next, we have the Elpis Team League. 2026 Cup. Here we do have our results. Oh. Is the bracket breaking for you? Is that?
Refresh, no. I just fixed it.
Okay.
But I'm not ready.
We have updates. We have updates regarding Team Super Katie. Oh my, crazy upset actually. Hold on. What the hell happened? What happened to the team? So Little Fairy, we were leaning towards team. Oh, actually, I say that. the upper match was a little bit more up in the air, just because remember my big criticism about Team Little Fairy is that their team is weaker now that they no longer have Shameless. Without Shameless, their ace player is a little bit weaker here, and Super Kitty, they take down Little Fairy 4-2. Big win for Super Kitty. Ear took down his opponent 2-0. UD Soldier lost to his opponent, and then we had Silky take down Malloy 2-0. So big win for Super Kitty. They make it all the way to the grand finals. Meanwhile, I would have said this would have been a very, very strong finals match. Starlight Twinkle versus PCEC. I'll say these are the two biggest teams in China. Starlight Twinkle, Jolly Loves, he takes down Millennium Fox 2-0. 2-1. I meant to say 2-1. Went all the way to the ace match. Ooh, meanwhile, Nanyu gets a walkover win over Rewhite. So a bit of a walkover win there. And another walkover win from Triple H over Sarah Kerrigan. Oh, to have the semifinals played with walkovers, that's unfortunate. Only one series was played out. This could have gone either way. This it does go the way of Starlight Twinkle in the end, but we could have had a stronger back and forth here. GG well played. Starlight Twinkle, they walk their way into the grand finals. It's going to be Starlight Twinkle versus Super Kitty that'll be played at some point, I believe scheduled to play in a couple of days' time this weekend. We played this weekend. I'm going to be favoring Starlight Twinkle. Super Kitty, they got Silky, and they got a lot of catching up to do outside of just Silky here. We'll see. We'll see how well they can perform. Best of luck to Super Kitty.
But it's the Super Kitty, like
It is the Super Kitty. No, how can Super Kitty be defeated? He's got the power of hope and friendship. True. It is the Super Kitty. You're not wrong.
The funny part is, that reminds me, there was like long ago when I was a kid, there was an anime called Super Pig. I'm like suddenly reminded of it.
Yeah.
Is it like a spin-off, the Super Kitty?
Yeah, they're related. They're all born in the same farm. No. But yeah, best of luck to Super Kitty. Best of luck. They fought hard to make it all the way to the grand finals. It's going to be a titan to bring down. Starlight Twinkle, they're a beast of a team. Assuming that they all show up as well. True. Like if they got some walkovers in the semis, we'll see. Hopefully they play the games. Hopefully they play the matches. Up next, we had our regional events. We had the Code for Giants Cup LATAM number 5. The regular, I want to say weeklies, but I think at this point they're monthlies, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, the monthly has returned. So shout out to Cosmos. Cosmos, he's a big part of the Brazilian scene and the Brazilian community. He's been organizing and sponsoring and running a bunch of these events for Latino America, and we have one of them here and now. Again, the 5th edition, the first edition of the year of 2026. Here we had players from all around Latino America. We had the Mega and Mute from Peru. We had Eggs from Colombia. We had Elevolts and Master from Brazil, and we of course had Tavito from Peru. We had a Special from Mexico. And we all came together here. Special took down Master 2-1. It was a close best of 3 in the semifinals. I would say that Master was the biggest threat to Special in this entire tournament. It would have been amazing to have seen a best of 5. There's a chance where Master could have brought him down, but Special brings him down 2-1 to make it to the grand finals, where he 3-0s Eggs in those finals. GG well played. We of course did cover this event over on our channel previously. Up next, we had the Code for Giants Cup number 29. Again, the first Code for Giants Cup of... we already covered 28 last time. We have 29. Here we have, the return of Eric. What does he stand for? Endurance, Righteousness, Intellect, and Kangaroo. He 2-0s Inexorable in the semifinals. He 3-2s Master. This is what we expect to see. He's back in shape, back in form, goes all the way to the ace match, and brings down Master 3-2 to become this month's Code for Giants Cup champion. GG well played. We've yet to cover these matches. We will in the next couple of weeks. Just like for SC Evo, our schedule's backed up right now, and we will eventually get around to covering Code for Giants Cup, the LATAM edition, the regular edition, and the StarCraft Evolution tournaments, and the 2v2s as well. We'll get around to it. Up next, we have Code for Giants Cup LATAM number 6. Again, this was the March edition of the Latin American tournament. Here we had Juanito. We had Special taking down Eric 2-0 in the semifinals. Master took down Tavito 2-0 as well. Did bring him down. That went all the way to the grand finals. Best of 5 between Special and Master. We got what we wanted previously. We finally got that best of 5. Special did claim the series 3-1. Master did pose a threat, but Juanito still claimed the series. GG well played. Congratulations. Special does claim the series, does advance on. or is going to be our champion. Is going to be the March champion for Covid Giants Cup Latam. That leads us into our next event. That leads us into Insane Master Killers Champion 2026 Primavera. Oh boy, let's go. I believe this was an in-house tournament, and we were favoring Dark Unnamed, as he is kind of the big notable name in the team. He's like the big ex-pro player. They've got some other big players like Boreal, like Checo, but Dark Unnamed, he stands above the rest for sure. Does stand above the rest. We have a massive double elimination bracket with a lot of streams, a lot of POVs. Here we had Ire taking down Red Fury 2-0. We had Ryder taking down Bavi Pollo 2-1 as well. We have Nox taking down Letos. Oh, hey, we have some international players here. Interesting. We had Nox over Letos. We had Havertz still up against Cristo Dorado. We have Solstice still up against Mauricio. We have Dark Unnamed who takes down Coquito 2-0. We have Quadruple Z taking down Raza 2-1, and we have Miwatch up against the Mike in the lower portion of the bracket. Once again, as you mentioned, Dark Unnamed is the big heavy favorite to win the entire tournament, but best of luck to all the other players. And there's also some bonuses. If you see here, it looks like we have a best sub 3.9k MR player gets $4, best sub 4.5k player and 5k player as well. So we do have some bonuses to spread the love to some of the other competitors in this event. But we'll see who can pose the biggest threat to Dark Unnamed. I would have said Boreal, but he is not on the brackets. At least not in the upper bracket, I should say. Looks like he was knocked down earlier. But GG. GG well played. Best of luck to all the other players. Best of luck to anyone that plays against Dark Unnamed. Best of luck. That leads us into the SC2 Weekly Open Tournament 2026 Season 1 First Edition, the first of many, organized by Thunderfire. Ooh, okay. So we spoke earlier about NetEase and about their influence. They did actually host and sponsor and organize like a fun show match event, which a bunch of retired Chinese players and F91 and Xiaoxie, if you remember. It was like a fun like promotional event. This was like maybe last month. And that did occur, and we also were notified that Thunderfire and NetEase are willing to sponsor and host other events, other tournaments, international events as well, which is what we got with the big offline events and more in the future. And here we even have some local tournaments. Big prize pool, by the way. $500 USD. Like this is as big, if not bigger, than a lot of the other weeklies that we have for like KSL or WardiTV Mondays. Like this is a massive prize pool specifically for the Chinese scene and for the Chinese community. This is huge. We already have regular weeklies like Sunrise Cup, for example, which we did not have this week, potentially because of this event, by the way. But we have a lot of regular events for the Chinese scene. The Chinese scene is always very healthy with the team leagues, with the 1v1 tournaments. But now to come out with a big sponsored event like this is pretty huge. And this is once again looking to revitalize the Chinese scene. Who do we have competing here? We have Jolo Loves, we have Kingslayer, we have Ghost Runner, we have Triple H, Silky, Jeshi, Nanyu. We should be seeing, do I see? There's Millennium Fox. We have Miggy, we have Coffee. Coffee is back. He's been gone for quite some time. There's Nanami Chiaki, Cyan, Lemon as well. Coming into this, I would have favored Lemon, not gonna lie, but oh my god, once again he does it. Lemon, he 2-0s F91, he 2-1 Cyan, big win there for Lemon. He 2-0s Coffee, he took down Nanami Chiaki, but who knocks down Lemon? SCV. We have given praise, we have given notice, or we have noticed SCV's performances in the past, but in recent weeks, SCV did get some crazy results that I was not expecting. This is not the first big win for SCV. He's one of those players in the Chinese scene that is now suddenly able to contend against some of the other veterans, like Lemon, like Jeshi. So again, SCV takes down Lemon 2-1. He takes down Jeshi 2-0 as well. Like these are some crazy quote-unquote upsets out of SCV, just because again he's more of an up-and-comer. He's not as established as Silky, Jeshi, Lemon, Coffee, Cyan, Nanami Chiaki, Jodo Loves, Potato, Triple H, like all these guys, like they all have a lot of experience. They all have a lot of, again, games behind them as well. And for SCV to come in, that's a big win for SCV. Big win. He's also been around for a while, that is true, but it's only recently where he's been able to spike up in play, spike up in skill. Again, he has been around for a long time, ever since COVID, I want to say, ever since like the COVID era of StarCraft, so 5 years, but more recent spikes for SCV. Interesting. GG. GG, well played. Big win there for SCV, as again, there was a big prize pool behind this as well. Bear that in mind. Big event. Up next, we have the Legacy Weekly Japan. Give me my boba. No, he's not here. No. Gopa. There's no boba here. Not like this. As Sayark takes down Kaimon to 0. Akira takes on Sayark in the semis. We have Deadly Kitten taking down Nisizo and Noah Shirayuki. I don't see Vaishravanya. I don't see Tapioca. We're missing a couple of our regulars here. I think I saw Crimson, right? Yeah, Crimson did compete. But in the end, Deadly Kitten takes down Akira 2-0. Again, we're missing some of our players, unfortunately, this time. But congratulations to Deadly Kitten nonetheless for claiming the win. I believe he's a Swedish Zurich player living in Japan. Does claim the win. Does stream from time to time as well. Does stream. That leads us into the Basilisk Big Brain bouts. Okay. This is our weekly show match series. We had the Basilisk one, which was Clem versus Serral. We had the fun one, which was Baby Marine versus Ledlix. And we had the good one, which is Hearthstone versus GG Machine. Okay. Up first, we did have the fun one. Ledlix and Baby Marine went all the way to the ace match. Whoa, what's going on? Esther Ledlix playing very well here. I would say that typically Baby Marine would be favored, but Ledlix to force the ace match, very impressive. Really impressive play there by Ledlix to bring Baby Marine to his knees. Up next, we had Hearthstone versus GG Machine. I would have favored GG Machine here as well, so big win for Hearthstone as he does win the series 3-1. Very nicely done. That leads us into the Basilisk one. With Basilisk one, Clem takes down Serral 3-1. I will say that Serral played well taking a map. I would say that Clem is usually the heavy favorites in his matches versus Serral. So thankfully, we did have a bit of a back and forth in the initial start of the series before Clem went to town. GG. GG well played. At least we did have that back and forth. Again, this is a weekly tournament sponsored, funded by Basilisk. Rotterdam does cover this on a regular basis and is willing to, reach out, branch out, and showcase some of the other players that aren't necessarily the best of the best, with the up and coming players as well, like your Ledlix, or even some like Masters players and Diamond players as well. I had my show match too. True. We had it. Up next, we had OSC King of the Hill. OSC King of the Hill, weekly number 241. Okay. We did have, again, this is a King of the Hill style format. One player stays on. If they win, they stay on. If they lose, they're out of the tournament. And we have 15 best of ones. 15 players. Let's go. A laser playing for the first time. I have not seen a laser in an OSC King of the Hill. Okay. We have a new player. A laser does enter the ring. He takes down Young Yakov and he gets shut down by Rebellion. I can hear the ZVP already from a laser from his stream. I can no, not like this. It's the first time we see a laser playing and maybe the last time. Hopefully not. But Rebellion takes him down initially. Nightmare does bring him down from there. Nightmare takes down Rebellion, takes down Art, takes down an inexorable 3-game win streak for Nightmare. Very nicely done. Before eventually falling to Solar. Solar goes on a massive win streak. Solar takes down Nightmare, Hacker's Top, Shameless, Nickrat, Ledlix, Percival as well. Christiana before eventually falling to Trigger. Trigger does stop Solar in his tracks. That was a big win streak. Trigger takes on Solar. Björn takes on Trigger. And out of all players, who stops Björn? Sebestus. GG, well played. Big win here for Sebestus. Very nicely done. GG. Oh, GG, well played as Sebestus does claim the win over Björn. And is going to be this week's OSC King of the Hill champion. Big win. Solo does walk away with the most amount of prize money, as he did win the most amount of matches, of course, followed by Nightmare, and then Sebestus does come in third place for being the final King of the Hill. GG, well played. Again, big shout out to OSC for hosting these events on a regular basis every single week. It's a really fun format, really fun tournament. We haven't casted an OSC King of the Hill in a long time, unfortunately, but a big reason for that is just the time slot. It just starts very, very late in the evening, and we're not as available in the evenings as we used to be. So a bit of a feels bad, man. Up next, we have the Open Cups. We have the Open Weekly Tournaments. Up first, we do have the KSL, the Korean StarCraft League. I mentioned earlier regarding the prize pool, and again, the Thunderfire Chinese event did have a bigger prize pool than KSL. I was curious about that. I mean, again, that's just how much sponsorship they're getting over there. So looking forward to see the growth of the Chinese scene in the coming months, in the coming year. For now, though, we have the KSL. Here we had Hero. Hero took down Homeowner 2-0, took down Shin 2-0, and went up against Beyond in the grand finals. Beyond likewise took down a Creator, took down Percival on his way to those finals before falling to Hero. Again, this is usually Hero's playground. It's usually his stomping ground, I should say. Hero does come in and does win almost every single KSL. It's a rare sight to not see a Hero champion here in the KSL, and Hero does claim the win. At least did drop a map to Beyond. True. Did drop a map. Shout out to both Chicken Man and Dave Testa for hosting, covering, and running the events. Again, exclamation mark KSL in the chat to receive a link to the Patreon to support the KSL. That leads us into the WardiTV Monday. WardiTV Monday number 79. Oh, boys. PvP galore. That's God, no. We'll be catching up with these replays eventually in a couple of weeks. Looking forward to it. Oh boy. Zound played. Zound is quite rare. Zound, he rarely plays in these tournaments, so really cool to see Zound. Zound takes down Percival in the quarterfinals. Hero takes on Beyond early on. Hero takes on Clem in the quarterfinals. Hero, calm down, Bobby, calm down. Takes on Beyond, takes on Clem. Hero ensures that there's nothing but Protoss in the semis. Shameless took down Cure. Yo, ho. That is an upset. Shameless. He 2-1 Cure. That is crazy. That should not have that does not happen often at all. So that's a crazy win there for Shameless. GG, well played. That was the biggest upset of the entire tournament, I would say. So Shameless takes down Cure, takes down Ryung as well to make it to the semifinals. Classic takes down Max 2-1, and Classic takes down Shameless 2-0. So Classic does make it to the grand finals against Hero, and it goes all the way to the ace match. An intense back and forth, which often does happen. Classic and Hero, they are the best Protoss players in the world. So they often go back and forth. I typically lean towards Hero here, and it almost went his way, but Classic does clutch it out 3-2 over Hero. GG, well played. In the PvP TV Monday. Let's go. As that leads us into the Monday Night Weeklies. Here we had a similar player base. We had Clem, we had Beyond, Cure, Hero. I don't see Classic. Yeah, there's no Classic here, not this time. Oh my, whoa. Solicitous took down Max. Yo, what's going on? Maxpack's having a really hard time here. So that I spoke earlier. Shameless taking down Cure was a huge upset previously. Solicitous over Maxpacks. That is crazy. The hell happened? What? Oh my god. Art over Gabe? Yo. What was going on here tonight? What was so Art? I mean, Art. To be fair, Art has been looking really impressive as of late. True. Like the Quasar boy, he's been looking very, very strong. So respect where respect is due there. Art does take down Gabe, but so the Solicitous over Max Pax is wild. Any other matchups that come to mind here in the beginning? Not quite. So Clemmy does advance on. He takes down Shameless 2-1, takes down Beyond 2-1. Beyond took down Cure earlier. He's had a bit of a better win streak recently against Cure. But Clem takes down Beyond to make it to the upper bracket finals. Meanwhile, Hero, he 2-0s Percival, he 2-0s Art, and Hero 2-0s Clem in the upper bracket finals. Clem gets knocked down. Who took Maxpax out, by the way? So Maxpax, he went down to Solicitous, and Beyond eliminates Maxpax from the lower bracket semifinals. Clem eliminates Beyond. We have the rematch, and Hero, he 4-0s Clem. 2-0s Clem in the upper bracket, and 2-0s Clem in the grand finals. GG. GG, well played. Big wins here for Hero as he does dominate. Didn't drop a single map in this tournament. That's crazy. Hero. Speaking of Hero, that leads us into the Sparkling Tunica. The Sparkling Protoss Cup. True. As it was a PvP finals once again, it looks like this was a rematch of the WardiTV Monday, but with a different outcome. Hero, he does breeze his way to the finals. He takes down Roxas 2-0, Rex 2-0, Young Yakov 2-0. Classic, he took down Demi. Kaio took down Beyond 2-0 as well. We had the PvP finals. If you remember, in the WardiTV Monday, the PvP TV Monday, we had Classic taking down Hero 3-2. Hero, he was having none of it. He had places to be, pappy. 3-0 Classic. GG, well played. Strong showing out of Hero. Dominant performance as Hero doesn't drop a single map. It's crazy. 3-0's Classic. GG. Hero needs to calm down. Up next, we have the Pigazor Cup number 74. Speaking of Hero, and speaking of Hero, wait, hold on. I need to just double check this. So Hero, he didn't drop a map in Monday Night Weekly, right? There you go. So Hero, he didn't drop a map in Monday Night Weekly. He did not drop a map in a Tuna Cup, and he did not drop a map in Pegasus Cup either. That's crazy. Yo, he's going for the perfect. He's going. Oh my god, he's going for the flawless for the flawless week, Pappy. Crazy. If it wasn't for the WardiTV Monday, like that was the only tournament where Hero slipped up. But here he 2-0s Jairus, he 2-0s Perceive, he 3-0s Cham, and he 3-0s Max Packs. We casted this series live. That was a wild series. Hero did not all in, by the way. Max Packs all in. Like Max Packs, he was hyper aggressive. He all in almost every game. And Hero was every game. And Hero was the defender. Hero, he out macroed Max Packs every single game of that series. That was crazy. It was a crazy kind of like turn of events, just because usually it's the opposite. Usually it's the other way around. But Max Pax, he did struggle in those finals. He was trying to be hyper aggressive himself. He got caught out. Max Pax did take down Beyond in the road to the finals, but was shut down by Hero. GG. GG, well played. As Hero wins 3 events in a row without dropping a single map. Like this. That's insane. That leads us into the final weekly of the week. That is Kung Fu Cup, the Kung Fu Cup 2026, week number 2. Does he do it again? Okay. I was going to say, Hero, he wins again, but this time he drops some maps. Thankfully, he does drop some maps. Shout out to Rex, by the way. Oh, mate, Rex. Caster Rex himself. He 2-0s F91, beating a caster, and he takes the map off of Hero. Rex does what Max Pax and Clem could not. Unironically. True. Rex greater than Max Pax and Clem? No, the tournaments, they didn't lie, Pappy. They didn't lie. So Hero takes down Rex 2-1. Hero, he takes down Lambo 2-0. Lambo did defeat Zound in the process. That's a big win for Lambo. I would have said he was not favored against Zound. So really cool to see Lambo doing well here in the event. Scrolling down a little bit further, we had Classic. He took down Solar 2-0. We had another rematch. Remember, Hero, he lost a Classic in the WardiTV Monday. He 3-0'd Classic in Sparkling Tuna Cup. And here in Kung Fu Cup in KFC, Hero, he 2-0's Classic. Big win there for Hero. Takes him down 2-0 to make it the grand finals. Meanwhile, Beyond takes down Ryung 2-1, takes down Cure 2-1. Beyond, he's beaten Cure like in the last 3 events this week. Like this has been a rough week for Cure, and Beyond has been barely clutching it out over Cure in the TVTs. Scoring up, Clem didn't make it through. Rogue stopped him. That's a surprise to me. Like Rogue has been looking a little bit more shaky in ZBT as of late, but he does bring Clem down. I would have loved to have seen those games. I'm curious what happened there. Beyond 2-0's Rogue, that's to be more expected. Again, like I was favoring Clem versus Rogue, so I'm curious what happened in those games. But Beyond takes on Rogue 2-0. Then we have the grand finals, Beyond versus Hero, and Beyond, he also does take a map, which, I mean, is impressive considering that Hero's been going on a flawless tournament run streak for the past couple of events. So that's a big win for Beyond. Takes a map. GG, well played. Hero does win the series 3-1. Oh, GG, well played. But Hero, he was on a tear this week. Hold on. So out of 5 weeklies, sorry, 6, because I didn't have them all open. So we had 6 weeklies this week. We had KSL, which Hero won. We had WardiTV Monday, which Hero was second in. We had Monday Night Weekly, which Hero won. Tuna Cup, Hero won. Pegasus Cup, Hero won. And Kung Fu Cup, which Hero also won. Hero, he won 5 out of the 6 weeklies, and in that final one, he came second in, which was the WardiTV Monday. That's crazy. Like Hero, he went beast mode this week. He won basically everything, and came second place in the WardiTV Monday. That's insane. And he barely lost any games. Barely lost any maps. I mean, Hero is the best Protoss in the world. Like, so if anyone's gonna do it, it's gonna be Hero. But usually we do like trade a little bit. It's like maybe Hero wins like 2 or 3, and then like Classic wins 1, which did happen this week, and then like Clem wins 1, and then maybe Max Pax wins 1. Like those are usually the winners, and those are usually like the big names in StarCraft when it comes to the online tournament scene is Hero, Max Pax, Classic, Clem, and yeah, that's it. That's like it's usually between them. Like Clem, Max Pax, Hero, Classic. Like it's usually rotating between those 4 players. But Hero, he just ate it all up this week. Ate it all up. Greedy, baby, greedy. GG, well played. The Hero week has concluded, of course, and congratulations to Hero for winning almost everything. Shout out to Classic for winning that one event this week outside of Hero. GG, well played. And again, it was a pretty intense week of StarCraft. Hopefully, in the coming weeks, we can have a little bit more diversity when it comes to our top players. But as I mentioned, like it's usually like Clem, MaxPax, and Classic that do threaten Hero. It's usually those top players, and I'm sure they'll be there to try to threaten him in the next week of play. Best of luck. Best of luck as Hero Week does conclude. And if you want to sign up for the upcoming maybe second week of Hero, potentially, exclamation mark sign up list. There's a sign up list in the chat. Again, you can get a link to SC Evo, which is going to be in 2 days' time. We have the Platinum StarCraft League, Platinum StarCraft League tournaments. We have the WardiTV Monday. We have Monday Night Weekly, Tuna Cups, Kung Fu Cups. All the weeklies that we mentioned are all going to be available once again in the upcoming week. If you want to be one of those players that gets toured by Hero, sign up. Sign up, Bobby. Sign up. You can have the satisfaction of going down to the eventual champion. Kappa. But again, the signups are available. The countdown timer is available as well, so you can, of course, check that out and do sign up if you so wish to compete, to take part in the scene, take part in the community. So we have the sign up list. Likewise, if you want to support us here on the CranKy Ducklings, you can do so via Patreon, exclamation mark Patreon in the chat. Our Patreon does fund our tournaments on a regular basis. It funds Sparkling Tuna Cup, it funds the Sea Duckling Open and the Masters 1 Open as well, all funded via Patreon. You can help us grow our tournaments, boost the prize pool, and attract more players. I mean, we already have the attention of Hero, so you don't get better than that, I guess. But again, you can help us grow the events, grow the prize pool, and support the players as well via Patreon. So you can check us out there. Otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in, just catching up with the chat. Solo to some extent as well in the Wardy Cups. I think Solo's like won one Wardy Cup this year. Like it's very rare to have a Zerg champion. So I would typically lean towards like your classic Hero, Clem, Max kind of setup of players. You think too small, lads. I'm aiming to get 0-4 by Hero. True. True. No. T-Gen Rushers unite. But with that, we're going to be wrapping up. Here for the time being. So again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you want to help support, if you want to tune into more of us here on the CranKy Ducklings, we do have our weekly schedule. Hold on. See in chat, he won 3, I think. I mean, I'm checking WardiTV Monday. So this year we've had Trigger, Hero, Bunny, Hero, MaxPax, Hero, MaxPax Classic, Clem, MaxPax Classic. Oh boy, yeah. So Sola, he's won 0 WardiTV Mondays this year. It was last year where he won. I think he won 1. Unironically, Sola, he won 3 WardiTV Mondays in 2025. True. He won 3 in 2025, 0 in 2026. But you know, we'll get there, Pappy. We'll get there. Pretty sure I can beat him with my 12 pool build. True. He could. Kappa. But with that, we are going to be wrapping up here. Again, when it comes to our weekly schedule, we should be back later on this morning in around 12 hours time. In 12 hours, we're going to be live with the KSL, the Korean StarCraft League. We're going to be catching up with the matches from the event that we just saw. I'll do my best to, of course, wipe my memory of that and get into it as fresh as possible. We have the RSL of the weekend. We have the Revival StarCraft League playoffs over Saturday and Sunday. We have the Platinum StarCraft League event over the weekend as well. We will also be casting that here on the channel. And then we get into the regular week of schedule here with WardiTV Mondays, with OSC Elites, with Tuna Cups, Pickerstar Cups, Kung Fu Cups, more Pickerstar Cups, and eventually some SC Evo. So plenty of content, plenty of StarCraft on the horizon coming up in April. We'll do our best in April to catch up with all of these events. We'll do our best to eventually be able to get back into SC Evo and GV2s and all that nature. It's just so much to cast. It's so much to cast, so much to cover. We'll do our best. But otherwise, thanks for watching. Thanks so much for tuning in. We do appreciate it. And we'll see you guys in 12 hours time with our coverage of the KSL. See you then. Ciao. Oh, and also, again, check us out on Patreon. Check us out on YouTube. We do stream on YouTube on a daily basis. And shout out to Kuro for handling the production side of things. A big shout out to Kuro for making sure the stream is as stable as possible. We'll see you guys next time. Ciao. Ciao. See you next time.